Okay, I've heard you all who wanted a video on how I mount my plants. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Memo. This is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me. It's tropical houseplants. So yes, I have seen all of the comments on a lot of my videos going on about the fact that you wanted me to show you how I mount my plants. It's not very different how most people would mount my plants, and also anybody that came to my mounting plants workshop in Malvern. Hi, I hope yours are doing really well. And on that note, actually, let me show you how the display one that I was using to show everybody the process is doing in my care. Ta-da! So this is a staghorn fern, and it was little itty bitty tiny whiny when it was getting done in Malvern, and it's already bushing up. You can understand now why I was talking about the mount size in relation to the plant, and it was a bit smaller, but actually it's going to not take very long for this to start covering this entire thing up, purely on the fact that staghorn ferns can go super quickly. So doing really well. But today I want to show a lot more people, the people that are watching this video, how I mount my plants, and I'll kind of give you the adjustments in terms of if you're going to do it in a different way. So first thing is first, get your materials ready before you start. And by materials, I will show you what I mean. So sphagnum moss, any form of sphagnum moss that you need, because you're going to need, doesn't matter what you're mounting, generally speaking, you'll need something to kind of hold everything together. Sphagnum moss is going to be your friend there. Some form of snips, and then something to tie the plant and the root mass onto whatever mount you're going to be using. I like using the kind of plastic clear fishing line, if that makes sense. I think this is called monofilament. I've had this for years. I don't even know where I got this. I might have bought this when I was still in London. It's been over a decade since I've been in London, so it should tell you something. And this was like 100 meters. It wasn't cheap. Like, I think this was $7.99 in terms of Great British pounds. But years, and I'm still going through it. I'm still not even finished it for 100 meters, so it's okay. It's a bit on the pricier side, but there's a reason why I said this, and I said this to the people at Malvern as well. You could use more natural fibers, absolutely fine. It's a choice that you want to make. The reason why I chose this, knowing that it's still plastic technically, is in terms of longevity. Because you could do something like twine, you could do hemp rope, you could do all of these things. The problem is with a lot of the mounts, if it's something like that, it will absorb moisture and stay wet for prolonged period of time. So you might then get some funky smells, you might get it slightly rotting as well. To me, it's too risky. I would rather go with something like this, which will remain relatively sterile. And then I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about it stretching or kind of fraying and all of these things. This tends to be a bit more robust. So this is why I choose this. I know there are issues with this as well. So that's my 2 cents on this one as well. And then, and most importantly, is whatever substrate, it's a very big bag that I'm almost out of, you're going to use when you are mounting. And that could be a soil mix, which that one is because of what I'm going to be mounting today, or it could be something like orchid bark, which is what I've got here. So it depends on what you are mounting. So first thing I want you to do, you've collected all of your ingredients, and actually probably this is a step that you need to be doing before you collect your ingredients. Know what it is you're going to be mounting, yeah? So by that I mean, are you going to be mounting an orchid? Are you going to be mounting a fern like I had, like I just showed you with the staghorn fern? Another example I can show you is And this is another fern that most people don't realize you could mount. This is a blue star fern, which is an epiphytic fern, which is similar to the fern that I'm going to be mounting today. And the reason why I went with fern and didn't go with the obvious choice of an orchid, and I can show you an orchid as well. So for example, this is a bulbophyllum orchid, which is on a different type of mount to the one that I'm going to be using today. So that is an example of a mount. So this is another 3D printed mount, which I kind of designed. It's looking a bit janky, but it doesn't need to look perfect. It's got loads of holes in the back for aeration, and it makes it really easy when it comes to tying things up. So bulbophyllum orchids or ferns, and the reason why I said I was going to show the fern today is because the same principles of exactly what I'm going to be doing today could be utilized for a lot of epiphytic plants. And by that, I mean things like Hoyas. You could grow Hoyas this way. You could grow Dischidias this way. You could grow any plant that kind of has a trailing effect that is epiphytic in the form that I'm going to show you today. Which the main difference is going to be that soil substrate that I was just talking about now versus something like an orchid, which will probably have either pure sphagnum moss, depending on the orchid, or orchid bark covered up with sphagnum moss. So we've got all of our materials collected. Let me show you what I'm going to be mounting on. And it is these 3D printed mounts, essentially. I got these from one of the viewers here, North. Hi, I'll add North's shop down below. I'm not sure if he's still selling these, but I will add it down below. North is based in Canada, but you can reach out and have chats. And it's nice to support a viewer of the channel as well. So this is something that I've sworn by for the last few years. I know some people might look at it and go, oh, but there's no aeration at the back. There is another version of this that does have holes in the back as well, but because I knew I was going to be planting something other than an orchid, I'm happy to go with this. And you can kind of see it's got drainage holes at the bottom there, and because it's got that little lip that you can put the soil in, it makes mounting a lot easier. It's also got these types of pegs where you can wind that twine around easily enough. Now, I am very aware that the majority of people won't have this. Completely fine. So I'll talk to you as if it was another material that you might be using. You might just be using, so there's a couple of things that you could use that's super, super easy, because a lot of people will be like, you can get a bit of driftwood and all these things. Those things are expensive. Also, with all of these other materials, there's always the risk, and I said this to the team that did the workshops in Malvern with me, anything that's natural material, same thing I was talking about, the hemp, the hessian, all of these things, there's going to be a point where, because of the moisture that's constantly around it, they're going to deteriorate and you're going to need to replace them. Even people that have been growing orchids for many, many years and they're growing them on natural material mounts will tell you the same thing. There is a point where most wood will just rot, basically. There are types of wood that you can get that will last for longer, and it's eluding me now. There's a couple that are really good examples that people use. The problem with those types of wood is that they are exceptionally expensive if you want to be doing it. So if you're probably just starting off and you want to attempt things, they might not be the best option. So that being said, you could, and this is an easier option, again, this is going to be something that you're going to need to replace because it will deteriorate over time. You can get something that is like cork boards, and you can kind of stick them to the wall sometimes, or cork tiles. They're usually a bit thicker on the side, and you might put something behind it so it's not touching the wall. The reason why I like this is because it's plastic. If it's against the wall, then you don't get a lot of that dampness going onto the wall. With anything that's more of a natural fiber, like wood, the actual corkboard, there is a risk unless you've put some form of lining behind it. So you could do it. You could just put some, an example of this would be pond liner. So it's large sheets of plastic again, where you can stick it at the back of whatever the mount is, and then at least it means that whatever surface it's touching isn't going to be constantly moist until the whole thing dries out. So that's why I prefer these ones, but I know a lot of people want to go the natural route. So if you're going to do that, there's a couple of things you can do. In terms of how you're going to wind the fishing line or the hemp wire or anything you want to do around it, I'll tell you about that as we're mounting. But one thing that you could do that's going a bit of an extra mile, so say you've got this is a piece of wood, like a solid piece of wood, you could drill some screws in or put some nails in, and then that gives you something to kind of wind around. They might just not look the greatest, especially if you leave a lot of it exposed. You can drill quite a bit of it in it, but you don't have to do that. I will show you the other technique when we're kind of wrapping the other one. So without further ado, let's mount. Let me show you the plant actually that I'm going to be mounting, and let's start the mounting process. So the plant that I'm going to be mounting seems absolutely huge. The pot is a lot smaller, don't worry about it. So this should be fine to fit in here. I'm going to flatten out the roots ever so slightly, but again, make sure that your mount is the right size for your plant. So this is a crocodile fern, and this is a bit of an experiment because this is a fern that I have struggled to keep happy for many years and times previously. I think this is plant number 3 for me, but I've never grown it epiphytically. And after the success that I've had with like my blue star fern, which again, there's a lot more ferns out there sold as houseplants that are actually epiphytic. They are not ground-dwelling ferns, which means that their care is going to be slightly different from the usual edict that you get about ferns, where you need to keep it evenly moist all the time. No, because if it's an epiphytic fern, it would be normal for it to be evenly moist all the time because of where and how it's growing. So, very excited to find out, because as soon as I kind of realized that epiphytic ferns were a thing, and again, I don't know how I didn't make that connection between epiphytic ferns and obviously staghorn ferns, which nearly everybody mounts, to say that, oh yeah, there's going to be things that probably grow like this, so they might be easier. So yes, so this is an epiphytic fern. Let's take it out. So it's got some decent root structure on there. I'm going to try and flatten it for when I put it in. But let me show you, and you don't necessarily even need to flatten it that much, because, and this is the joy of these things that I'm using, because I could almost do it that way. And that then still creates something that is epiphytic, because quite a lot of the roots are then exposed, and it's just how you then mount it. It will just grow upwards. So if the mount is against the wall, it will go that way, rather than if I had it slam in the middle where it would just grow outwards. Both of those could be doable with this. I think I'm probably going to mount it so that it goes upright, and I'm fine with that if I'm being entirely honest. So, first thing you'd want to do before you start any of this is whatever material you're going to use at the base of this, put it in now. Obviously this has got a lip. If you're using something like a flat piece of wood, you might not have the benefit of that. What you will be doing at that point is taking the root mass as it is, try not to disturb this as much as possible, and then getting some damp soil, if you're going to be using soil, because it will kind of stick to itself and it's a bit easier to mold, almost like you're doing a kokodama, and add it to the side of it, and then wrap the whole thing in damp sphagnum moss, or sphagnum moss that isn't bone dry. And then that will create a bit of a ball, and then it's going to be easier for you to attach it. But because of the way that I'm doing it, and you might find a mount that, especially if it's something like driftwood, that might have a bit of a hollow that you could take advantage of, fill that up if you want with your soil substrate, or if you're doing orchids, with orchid bark. With orchid bark, depending on the type of orchid, you might not need it. You might just be able to put the roots, bare root, directly onto the wood, and depending again on the orchid, you might not even want to cover that with damp sphagnum moss. That might be all that it needs. It will just attach to that bit of wood, and the roots can be exposed. You just need to attach it. So let me put some soil in here, and let me show you what it's going to look like. So I've put some soil substrate at the bottom there, and what I will then do is, and I could scoot you down below, but this is not going to take very long at all. So let me show you what's then going to happen. I'm going to put it in as I said I was going to, so I'm going to do it that way. And I'm just going to fill the rest of this up with soil. So all the gaps that you're seeing around the side here, I'm just going to fill it up with soil. This is going to be exposed, and it's going to be against the damp sphagnum moss, because again, I want to give it aeration. So there you go. That whole thing now is nestled within some of that soil mixture. And for the people that are eagle-eyed, because I am a broken record, this is the Anthurium soil mix from Soil Ninja. It's that airy. Shocking. You're putting a fern in an Anthurium soil mix, an Anthurium and orchid soil mix. But again, remember, this is an epiphytic fern. Then you want to take your damp sphagnum moss. So make sure, and this is the important bit, make sure that it's not dense, basically. So fluff it up as much as you can, because what you want to do is almost put it on top as gently as possible. You don't want this element of it to be compacted, because this is the bit that's going to be exposed to the air the most, essentially, from the whole thing. Some compaction is going to happen with time, and that is absolutely fine. But to begin with, you want to keep this as light and airy as absolutely possible. And I'll show you what this looks like in just a second, just because I'm trying to get this to be as fluffy as possible. And again, I know the people that were at the event and we were all doing this, this was a bit, was a bit finicky to kind of get going, but let me show you. So see how long it took whilst I was saying that for me to cover it up. So you can kind of see the sphagnum moss is around it. It is very, very, very fluffy. And again, the main reason to have this here is to protect some of those exposed roots now. Also, it gives them a lot of air, but in essence, it's predominantly to keep that growing media in. So now that the sphagnum moss part of it is done, is where we move on to fishing line. So at this stage, and I did this so many times, if you're going to cut it off the roll, cut a lot more than you think you're going to need, and that's still probably not going to be enough. I'm going to do about that much. And I can always, if it's too much, I can save it within the roll and reuse it for the next mount that I need to do. So let me just get this onto a little notch that it has there. There we go. And I will just snip it off there. Right. And with this, and you can kind of tell now why those little pegs are important, let me start off the first one because it's going to take a moment for me to tie it up, and then you can see me wind it around, basically. Okay, so I've got it attached to one side, and all I would then do now is go across and hook it onto one of the other bits, go across and hook it on one of the other bits, and you're basically just going to create a bit of a weave in front of the actual plant itself in order for everything to kind of stay in place. That is what you are trying to achieve at this point. And I've done it all once, and that should be good enough. What I might do with this one, because there's quite a bit of plant on here, I might go for a couple of these again, just so that they've got a bit more stability. And then that's it. Now, remember how I was telling you before, if you don't have the screws, the nails, how you would attach it, you would literally, whatever your media is, you would just go around in all the different directions in order to create the catch that you need to in order for that mount to be there. And by the way, at this point, I just need to tie it off and you are done. That is your plant mounted. And just to show you it complete, that is a mounted crocodile fern. Ta-da! Nice and simple, and hopefully I won't kill this one. As I said, there's a lot of ferns that will do mounted. This one is one that has been a personal nemesis for myself, so I'm hoping it will do okay. But doesn't it just look really, really pretty? You can see what I meant now about the smaller plants. Because this was a bigger plant, I was kind of limited on what I could do and how I could place it. I wanted to place it like this. You could have placed it so that it's facing outwards instead of upwards. But if you've got a slightly smaller plant, you also give it a chance to kind of grow into it. Also, it means that if it is a smaller plant and you're giving it this much space, it will take a bit longer between waterings, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is slightly less risky because you've got all of this area exposed to the air. Because in essence, if you think that this was a pot, there's only this much of a shallow pot, but this much of it is exposed. it makes things a bit easier. So yes, hopefully this will make sense for everybody. So tell me if you have ever mounted a plant, if you've ever mounted a fern, I'd like to know, or any other house plant, not necessarily an orchid, but house plants. I'd be very curious to know. And tell me how they did. Did any of this process surprise you? Did you do things slightly differently when you do your mounting? Or were you thinking it was going to be slightly different? Do let us all know down below. My way is not the only way, my way is not the right way either necessarily. We all have our own ways of doing this, but I know because a lot of people asked how I mount my plants. I showed you how I mount my plants. This is my kind of process, and this is my kind of internal monologue as I was describing to you what I was doing. So yeah, hopefully, let's see how this little plant will do. I really hope it survives. Biggest heartbreak of a fern ever, this one. So we shall see. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.